the French President Emmanuel Macron is in Brazil on a state visit this week. Today, he's been visiting a submarine that was built in Rio de Janeiro with French technology. Now, during the three-day trip, Macron is seeking deeper cooperation with the President Lula government, this after years of friction during the tenure of Jair Bolsonaro. To tell us a little more, Angela Diffley, our foreign editor, is with me. And Angela, why is Macron making this visit to Brazil now?
Well, this is something of a reset in Franco-Brazilian relations. The first thing to say is that it is a good thing in terms of those relations that Lula is not Bolsonaro, because the relationship really collapsed after Macron made some criticisms of Bolsonaro's politics in Amazon on the rainforest, and Bolsonaro replied by insulting Macron's wife. The whole relationship deteriorated dramatically. These two have something of the beginnings of a personal relationship. They're actually, it appears, in international gatherings, sometimes seated next to each other because it's done alphabetically. For example, at the King's coronation, Lula, Macron, they were next door to each other. There were enough of a flicker, enough of a spark for diplomats to exploit and turn that spark of the beginning of a personal chemistry and use it. In terms of what can be worked on, these two men are keen to cooperate on climate change. It's something that they both take very seriously, and so they will be talking very much about that. Apart from that, France is the third biggest investor in Brazil, and high in that investment is the defence sector. We saw there that you mentioned that the launch of this Brazilian-built submarine with French technology. There is also under study a nuclear-powered such submarine for the future. So they're really cooperating on that. Also, France has a border with Brazil, a 730-kilometre border, French Guiana, which is a French overseas region, borders northern Brazil, and there are sometimes issues around illegal gold mining and the contamination of the environment around there, where they have announced that they plan to cooperate with joint police operations.
You touched on this a little bit already. You mentioned investment, and tell us sort of economically, how important would you say Brazil is to France?
Well, economically and in other contexts, the most important thing to say is that the Élysée let it be known before Macron left that the thorny issue of the Mercosur-EU commerce trade agreement would not be discussed. It is much more convenient for Macron to say, look, we'll leave that to European Union negotiators, because there is a clash on this. Lula says France is too protectionist on its agricultural policy, particularly. That's where the biggest clash is. And the French farmers, who recently caused significant disruption here in France, have been complaining to Macron, saying that Brazil and other Latin American countries under this pact would be an unfair playing field. So they've left that aside. What is important in the wider context is, of course, the growing importance of Brazil in the world, in the new world order, a multipolar world. Lula will be president of the BRICS. He will take over the presidency of the BRICS group of countries in 2025, and he will be hosting in October the G20 countries. He will be COP30. Brazil is hosting the environmental conference next year as well. Brazil is a very important voice in the world. Other issues they'll discuss, Macron might try to get Brazil to move towards sanctions on Ukraine. Brazil has very much avoided criticizing Russia. Russia is an important relationship for Brazil, as is China, its biggest trading partner. And the Brazilians might want to talk to Macron about Haiti and, to a lesser extent, Venezuela, where they have unfolding chaos in both countries.